midnight screams.
We were so stupid. My childhood best friend, Lily, and I had managed to find a Ouija board in a Halloween store. We were the type of middle school girls to wear all black and think we were cool for listening to underground metal bands. So naturally, we had to cross contacting a spirit off of our bucket list. I didn't think we'd actually manage to reach anything. Ouija boards are mass manufactured by Hasbro, for fuck's sake. No way they'd actually work, right? I was dead wrong. Lily was the one who set everything up. Her parents were more laid back than mine were. Mom and Dad already weren't fans of my heavy black eyeliner and crummy attitude, so bringing a Ouija board into their home sounded like a great way to get myself grounded. Lily's house was the natural choice. Lily ushered me into her room the second I stepped through the door. Her excitement was bubbling over. She clearly put a lot more stock into the paranormal than I did. "I've been waiting for this all week," she said, an eager glint in her eyes. "I'm pumped. This is really something," I replied, drinking in my surroundings. Dusk wasn't for another 3 hours, but Lily's room was dark as pitch. Thick blankets were hung over the windows, despite the fact that she already had blackout curtains. A circle of candles glowed on the floor, acting as our only light source. The Ouija board sat in the center of the room like a crown jewel. Something about the whole setup made me uneasy. "Come, sit," Lily said, claiming her spot to the right of the board. I did as I was told, taking a seat opposite her. "Put your hand on the planchette," she demanded, her gleeful demeanor melting into one of stern determination. Truthfully, she was beginning to frighten me, but I didn't tell her that. Instead, I followed her orders and placed my hand beside hers. "Hello, spirits? Is anyone in the room with us?" Her call was met with a lingering silence. "Is anyone there? Anyone from the other side?" Nothing. Just another moment of tension before she called out again. "If anyone can hear me, give me a sign. Lily, I don't think this is—" The planchette suddenly began to move. It rapidly shifted, first to the letter H, then to E, L, and O. "Hello." My blood turned to ice. "Lily, this isn't funny. Stop moving the planchette." I'm not." She failed to meet my gaze. I knew just by the tone of her voice that she was telling the truth. "Who are you?" Lily continued, a slight tremor in her voice. The planchette began to move again. "S-A-M. "Nice to meet you, Sam," Lily said, regaining some of her prior confidence. "I'm going to ask you some questions if that's okay." The planchette shifted to yes. "When were you born?" 1-8-4-3. "When did you die?" 1-8-6-2. "That's really young." "Were you killed?" "Yes." "By who?" Everyone. Lily and I shared a glance. I was terrified to know where this was going, but a morbid curiosity gnawed at me. I decided to ask a question of my own. "By everyone? Do you mean the whole town? Were you hung?" The planchette darted aggressively as soon as the question left my lips. Yes, yes, yes. I could feel the color drain from my face. Lily asked the question that I couldn't bring myself to. "What did you do?" There was a pause before the planchette began to move. Murder. At that moment, I made one of the stupidest decisions of my life. I stood up. "Lily, I can't do this anymore. I want to stop," I said, taking my hand off the planchette and rising to my feet on shaky legs. Lily didn't have time to respond. We could only watch in horror as the candles began to extinguish on their own, one by one. Only the one between us stayed lit. its flame dancing weakly. My bottom lip trembled and I could feel tears welling up. Lily was frozen with fear, her eyes locked on me. And then the last candle was snuffed out, plunging us into darkness. We screamed, ran for the door, and raced out the house and into the light. If anyone else had been home, they would have thought we'd lost our minds. The pair of us collapsed on the front lawn, tears streaming down our cheeks. We stayed there for a long time, letting the adrenaline rush fade. Once the fear dissipated, we stood, shared a glance, and walked back inside, turning on all the lights in the house until Lily's parents got home. I kept my mouth shut about the incident. Mom and Dad would have gone berserk if they'd known I'd been messing with a Ouija board. But staying quiet became harder and harder to do when strange things started occurring around the house. One night I woke up with weird bruises on my wrist. Then my things started to go missing, only to reappear hours later, right where I'd left them. Words began appearing on the bathroom mirror, unprompted. "Hello, I see you. No escape." After nearly a week, it was clear that the odd occurrences were taking a toll on me. I could barely manage to get a wink of sleep, and my grades suffered as a result. A few of my classmates even commented about how tired I looked. I had to do something. So I called Lily, the only person I could confide in. "Hey," she said from the other end of the line. "Hey, how are you holding up?" There was a pause. "Hannah, I'm scared. Really weird stuff has been happening, and I just don't know what to do." Her voice was tinged with a mixture of exhaustion and fear. My heart sang for her, but a small part of me was glad to have someone who knew what I was going through. "We'll figure out how to get rid of this thing. Ask your parents if I can spend the night tomorrow. It'll all be okay." I heard a sniffle. "I will. I really hope you're right." The next day, I found myself standing on Lily's front porch ringing the doorbell. After a few seconds, Lily appeared behind the screen door. She was sickly and pale with deep purple bags under her eyes. She'd obviously had it worse than I did. "My parents won't be home tonight," she said, allowing me into the house. "They're at a concert a few hours away." I nodded as I followed Lily down the hall to her room. Once we got there, I noted that it was a stark contrast from my previous visit. All the lights were on, the curtains were open, and the Ouija board was nowhere in sight. "So, I don't think you're going to like this," I said, wringing my hands. "I know I don't. But we're going to need to use the Ouija board again." Lily's eyes grew wide. "I don't want to do that," she said, averting her gaze. "I don't either, but I think we need to say goodbye to Sam. That's probably the only way to get rid of him." Lily paused. I could tell that she was turning my words over in her head. "Okay," she said, a stern determination overtaking her expression. "I'll do whatever it takes to get this thing to leave." Moments later, the Ouija board was set up. We didn't bother with the candles or turning out the lights. Neither of us were comfortable with that. Lily seemed hesitant to start, so I took the lead as we placed our hands on the planchette. "Sam, are you in the room with us?" No response. I tried again. "Sam, we know you're in the room with us. Give us a sign that you can hear me." The planchette began to move. "Hithere." My heart dropped. I didn't like that answer. "We need you to leave us alone. I'm going to say goodbye, and we're going to be done with you." The planchette angrily flew to the word no. 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 Suddenly, the door to Lily's room slammed shut. She released a whimper and jumped instinctively. That was the worst thing she could have done. because she momentarily removed her hand from the planchette. An overwhelming sense of dread settled into my stomach. The lights flickered, and the planchette began to move once again. My heart raced as it flew around the board, and my head felt heavy as it spelled another word. Night, Night. That's the last thing I remember before everything went black. I awoke lying face down on the carpet, a searing pain shooting through the flesh of my back. I ran my hands over my skin, and they came away red. My face drained of color. Lily, what the fuck happened? I said, wincing as I rose to my feet. I received no response. Something was very wrong. I glanced around the room. When I found my best friend, I screamed. Lily was slumped against the wall, her eyes wide and unblinking. Her neck was stained a deep red. Written across her forehead were 3 letters that have haunted me for the rest of my life. Sam, I scrambled to pull out my phone. I called the police, trying to feel Lily's neck, for a pulse. She was cold to the touch. I was frantic when the operator picked up. 911. What is your emergency? Hello, my friend is hurt. I need help. Please, send an ambulance right. In my frenzy, my eyes fell to the Ouija board, and the words caught in my throat. I found myself paralyzed with terror as the weight of it all crashed down on me. The blood-splattered planchette was sitting over the word goodbye. When my uncle died, nobody knew what to do with his house. He never married, never had kids. It was just him, his little 2-story place on the edge of town, and his weird hobbies. He had been the strange uncle my whole life, the one who still used a landline, still collected VHS tapes, still had a paper TV guide by the couch like it was 1998. So when the lawyer told us he'd left the house to me, my first reaction was pure, selfish relief. I was drowning in rent. I worked a crappy support job at a software company, taking calls from people who somehow managed to break things by turning them on. The idea of not having to split a 1-bedroom with a stranger sounded like a miracle. The house needed work, but it was structurally fine. 2 bedrooms, a tiny kitchen, creaky wooden floors. It smelled like dust and old coffee. It felt lonely, but not in a creepy way. At least, not at first. We started cleaning it out the Saturday after the funeral. It was just me and my cousin, Lily, who'd been closest to my uncle besides me. He really didn't throw anything away, huh? She said, holding up a cracked lava lamp. Maybe he just thought everything would come back in style, I said. We laughed a little. It felt good to laugh. The Polaroid camera was in the hall closet, on the top shelf, just where I remembered it. Holy shit, Lily said, reaching for it. Remember this thing? I did. When we were kids and got stuck at his house during family gatherings, we'd play this elaborate game where one of us would hide and the other would try to sneak around with the camera and take a picture without the other noticing. You got a point if you caught the other kid on film without them seeing you. Bonus point if they looked really scared. We thought we invented horror photography. Lily turned the camera over in her hands. God, I love this stupid thing. Does it still work? I asked. She popped open the compartment. There's film in it. 20-year-old film? That can't be good anymore. Only one way to find out. She lifted the camera, pointed it at me before I could protest, and clicked. The camera whirred and hummed and spat out a square. The picture developed slowly, colors muddy and washed out, but it was there, me, standing in the dusty hallway, mid-blink. Still works, she said, satisfied, and set it on the entry table, We went back to sorting boxes. It wasn't until later, when Lily had gone home and I was alone, that I opened the hall closet again and saw the photos. Hundreds of them. Stacked in shoe boxes, pinned to corkboards, taped to the inside of the door, Polaroids, all of them. It was like opening the door of some strange, analog Instagram addiction. Most were ordinary. Pictures of my uncle's living room, his old car, his garden, stacks of books. A few were of people I recognized, me and Lily as kids, my mom, my grandmother before she passed. But the majority were backs, people's backs, people standing at the sink, hunched over the coffee table, bending to tie their shoes. Sometimes you could see a sliver of face in a mirror or window reflection, but usually it was just the back of someone's head, the line of a spine through a shirt, shoulders drawn up or slumped. All of them were taken from behind. All of them looked like the subject had no idea they were being photographed. A weird, uncomfortable chill ran through me. I told myself it was just his idea of art. Street photographers did candid stuff all the time. Maybe this was just his version, but domestic. Creepy, but not illegal. Still, I closed the closet door and tried not to think about it. I moved into the house a week later. At first it was almost nice. Lonely, yeah, but I kind of liked it. The creaks and groans became familiar. My uncle's old recliner was surprisingly comfortable. I bought a thrift store lamp, a cheap rug, tried to make it feel like mine. The first few nights, I slept with the TV on because the silence felt heavy, but nothing too weird happened, until I woke up on Wednesday and found the Polaroid on my kitchen table. I was sure I'd left it on the entry table by the front door. That's where Lily had set it down. I hadn't touched it since. I picked it up, frowning, and found a fresh photo underneath it. It was me, obviously. Sitting on the couch the night before, laptop open, blue light reflecting off my face as I scrolled through emails. The photo was taken from behind. I was wearing the same sweatshirt, my hair in the same messy bun. The TV was on in front of me, a blurry wash of light. I stared at it, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Okay, calm down. There was a logical explanation. I must have accidentally taken this. Maybe there was a timer function I messed with as a kid and forgot about. Maybe I somehow hid it while I was walking by and didn't hear it over the TV. Maybe the rationalizations were flimsy even as I thought them. Lily, I said out loud, relieved at the sudden possibility. She had a spare key. Maybe she was screwing with me. It was exactly the kind of shit she'd pull. I texted her. Very funny. You didn't scare me. You just wasted old film. A minute later, what are you talking about? The pic you took last night. Of me on the couch. Nice stalker vibes. I was at home last night? I worked a double. I was in bed by 9. You didn't come by the house at all? No? Why? I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting. I sent her a photo of the Polaroid. She took a minute to answer. Okay, that's actually creepy. You really didn't take this? Dude, no. Why would that be my idea of a prank? Burn that house, lol. I laughed. But it came out thin and shaky. I put the Polaroid in a drawer, camera on top of it, and told myself that was the end of it. The next one showed up 2 days later. I was rushing to work, half asleep, when I saw it on the small table by the front door, the Polaroid camera, and another photo underneath. This one was me again, standing at the kitchen counter, pouring coffee into my travel mug. The angle was low, like whoever took it was crouched near the floor. In the photo, my head was tipped slightly to the side. The back of my neck was exposed. I ran my hand over that exact spot and felt goosebumps prickle on my skin. I didn't text Lily this time. I didn't tell anyone. Instead, I did the thing my uncle never would have done. I bought a security system. By that weekend, I had 3 motion-activated cameras set up, one by the front door, one pointing down the hallway toward the bedrooms, and one in the living room. I put the little yard sign out front, protected by Sky Shield security like a charm against evil, just in case it wasn't ghosts, just in case some creep really was coming into my house at night. The next night, I stayed up late on the couch pretending to watch TV, while I kept one eye on the live feed from the cameras. Nothing, just static, soft changes in light and shadow, the occasional flicker as the heater kicked on. At 1:30 inches the morning, my eyes burned. I finally gave up and went to bed. I woke up at 3:12 a.m., not because of a noise, not because of a nightmare, because I suddenly felt watched. It was like someone had leaned over me while I slept, that suffocating awareness of another presence inches away. I lay perfectly still, heart pounding in my throat, and forced my eyes open. The room was dark. The shadow of my dresser loomed against the wall, moonlight seeping through the edges of the curtains. There was no one standing over me, no looming shape, but the feeling didn't go away. I sat up slowly, flicked on the lamp, and scanned the room. Empty. I slid out of bed, forced myself to walk down the hallway, past the dark bathroom and the empty second bedroom, into the living room. The Polaroid camera was sitting on the coffee table, pointed directly at the hallway. There was a new photo underneath it. My hands were shaking as I picked it up. It was me, asleep in bed, on my side, hair spilled across the pillow, taken from behind. There was something else in the picture, too, something that made my stomach drop. In the mirror of my closet door, you could see a sliver of the room, my back, the edge of my pillow. And behind me, just at the limit of visibility, there was a suggestion of a shape darker than the rest of the shadows, a hint of height, a slight curve as if someone were bending over me. I dropped the photo like it burned. I grabbed my phone and opened the security app. My fingers fumbled with the password. The hallway feed was empty. The living room feed, too. The timestamps ran smoothly. No gaps, no obvious glitches. I rewound to 3:12 a.m. and watched myself on the bedroom camera. I'd put one in there, too, after the first photo. Roll over and sit up, then swing my legs out of the bedroom, bed, and walk to the living room. No one else. No shadows moving where they shouldn't be. And yet the photo existed. I didn't go to work the next day. I called in sick and spent the morning seriously considering booking a hotel and never coming back. Instead, I did something stupider. I opened the closet with the shoeboxes again. I don't know what I was looking for. Confirmation that my uncle was just a weird artist. A note saying, "Lol got you from beyond the grave." What I found was a separate stack of photos, rubber banded together, tucked behind the others. They were all of the same person, my uncle. Sometimes he was sitting at the kitchen table with a newspaper. Sometimes he was in the recliner, head tilted back, mouth slightly open. Once he was brushing his teeth in the bathroom. All of them were taken from behind. Every single one. In a few, you could see his reflection. A tired man with thinning hair, a worn face softened by age. In one photo, he was asleep. in bed. In the mirror, behind him, there was the same suggestion of a shape in the shadows. My hand went cold. The last photo in the stack was different. It was of the hallway, right outside the closet I was standing in. You could see the bedroom doors, the scuffed baseboards, the slightly crooked picture my uncle hung of a lighthouse. It was empty, except for a pair of bare feet visible in the very bottom of the frame, heels turned outward, toes pointing directly toward the camera. The skin on those feet looked wrong, too pale, veins like dark threads under parchment. The angle was low, like the camera was on the floor, like something was lying on its stomach, looking up. I shoved the photos back into the shoebox, hands shaking uncontrollably now. I needed air. I needed light. I needed to not be inside these walls with whatever this was. I grabbed my keys and went to the front door. The Polaroid camera was on the entry table, pointed at me. There was a new photo underneath it. I hadn't heard it take anything. I hadn't seen the flash. I forced myself to look. It was me, standing in the hall closet, stacks of photos in my hands, taken from behind. I didn't leave the house. I know how that sounds. I know every survival instinct should have had me sprinting down the street and never looking back. But it felt like I'd already stepped too deep into someone else's game. Like if I turned my back on the house now, something would crawl out of it and follow me. Instead, I called Lily. "Hey," she answered, voice casual. "You alive?" "I need you to come over," I said. I hated how thin and brittle my voice sounded. "You okay?" "No." She didn't ask more questions. "On my way." While I waited, I sat on the couch, the security feeds open on my phone, the Polaroid camera sitting on the coffee table between us like a third party in the conversation I wasn't having. 5 minutes passed. 10. 15. "Where are you?" I texted. She didn't answer. Instead, I got a notification from the security app. Front door motion detected. I switched to the live feed. The porch was empty. No Lily. No one. My heart hammered. Another notification. Hallway motion detected. The hallway camera feed clicked on. The hallway was empty too. The timestamp was live, the seconds ticking forward. "Stop it," I whispered, like I could scold the house into behaving. My phone buzzed in my hand. New text from Lily. "Sorry. Traffic's insane. 10 more minutes." A shutter sound made me flinch. The Polaroid camera whirred. My breath caught in my throat as it spat out a fresh square. I didn't touch it at first. I just watched the pale rectangle slowly darken, colors seeping in like blood through gauze. When the image finally solidified, I almost dropped it. It wasn't the living room. It wasn't me. It was the front porch, taken from inside the house, through the peephole window in the door. I recognized the distorted ring of glass, the warped view of the street. Lily was standing on the porch, one hand lifted mid-knock, her head turning as if she'd just heard something behind her. The photo was taken from behind her shoulder. I stared at the timestamp in the corner. My uncle had always loved writing on his Polaroids in that tiny, neat handwriting. The date on this one was scrawled in the border. It was today, 10 minutes from now. I don't remember making the decision. One moment I was staring at the photo, the next I was moving. I put the Polaroid face down on the coffee table. I grabbed my car keys and my phone. I dialed Lily as I shoved my feet into my shoes. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey, I'm almost... Don't come to the house," I said, already halfway down the hallway. "I'm leaving. I'll meet you at the diner on Maple, okay? Right now. Just go there. Please, Lily. I'm serious. There was a pause. Okay. Okay. Yeah. You're freaking me out a little. I'll explain everything there, I said, and hung up before she could ask more questions. I didn't look at the security cameras. I didn't look back down the hallway. I opened the front door and stepped out into the afternoon sun like I was surfacing from deep water. Nothing grabbed me. Nothing whispered in my ear. The air outside felt thin and too bright. I locked the door behind me out of habit, sat in my car, and just breathed. I started the engine. My phone buzzed with a notification. Out of reflex, I glanced at the screen. New photo detected on device hallway cam. Against my better judgment, I opened the app. The hallway feed snapped into view. The door I'd just closed was there. The empty entry table. The closet door shut. And in the center of the hallway, just at the edge of the camera's range, there was a shape. Not a trick of shadows. Not a glitch. Something tall, bent at the waist in an impossible angle, like it was folding itself to fit inside the narrow hall. Its limbs were long and thin, hands resting on the floorboards like a person getting ready to crawl. Its head brushed the ceiling. The frame froze. The app crashed. My phone went back to the home screen. My reflection stared back at me from the black glass, pale and wide-eyed. Something moved in the back seat. Just a slight shift. The creak of old fabric. I didn't turn around. I put the car in drive. I backed out of the driveway, hands shaking so hard I could barely keep the wheel straight. As I pulled onto the street, my phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. No message, just a photo. I opened it. It was me, sitting in the car in front of the house, hands on the steering wheel, head turned slightly toward the phone, taken from behind. I'm writing this from a motel 2 towns over. Lily's okay. We met at the diner. She thinks I've had some sort of breakdown. Maybe she's right. I told her some of it, the parts that sound the least insane. She made me promise to call a therapist. I promised. I don't know if I'll keep that promise. The house is sitting there, empty, with all my stuff still inside. My uncle's boxes, the shoe boxes of Polaroids, the camera. I thought about calling a priest, a paranormal show, burning it to the ground. Instead, I just keep refreshing my phone. Every few hours, another photo comes in from that unknown number. Me at the gas station, putting the nozzle back. Me walking into the motel lobby. Me sitting on the bed, typing on my laptop, always taken from behind. I check the number once. No caller ID, no record. It just says, Polaroid. I don't know who's sending them. I don't know how far this game goes. I only know one thing with absolute cold certainty. Wherever I go, I'm not the one holding the camera anymore. I'll be entirely honest with you. I don't really know what to do right now. I just decided to write this on here. My hands are literally still shaking as I type this. I have no idea what happened to me today. For context, my name's Jack, and I work at a bottle shop. It's actually not terrible work, for the most part. It's owned and operated independently as a small business, so I get pretty taken care of on payday. It's one of those bottle stores that operates as a drive-through. Either a customer comes up to the counter with their alcohol and I scan it through for them, or they pull up in the drive-through and I serve them with whatever they need. Anyways, there's this event in town at the moment. It's an annual thing, and the store has pretty much blown up. I can't really keep up with everything happening, so my boss said he was planning on hiring a new guy for me to work with on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. Hence, today's horrifying events. Earlier. Today, at 4 p.m., I clocked in for a 3-hour shift. It was really business as usual, but being a Friday, I was definitely preparing to get slammed. As I clocked in on the computer in the back office, I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. I grabbed it and saw Sam Bosses was phoning me. I clicked accept and put the phone to my ear. "Good afternoon," I offered warmly. "Hey mate, it's Sam. You clocking in now?" "Yep, just got to work. Easy. Listen, you're gonna love me for this. We're trialing a new employee tonight. He should be getting there any second. Name's Damien. You all good to show him the ropes?" Thank God, Sam. I was literally just mentally preparing myself to get overrun with customers. "Yeah, I'll show him how everything's done. No problems. Look, I'm on my way to that meeting I was telling you about, and I'm just about to hit a black spot, so I'll let you go. Give me a buzz after you clock out and let me know how he went. Keep in mind I'm in and out of meetings until just after 7. All right?" "No worries, Sam. Thanks again. See you." And that was that. God damn, I wish I could go back, turn around and never have stepped foot into the store that night. But I did. I walked out of the office and into the main part of the store and saw a short, slightly chubby man standing behind the counter, looking at me. "There he is. Damien?" I exclaimed as I went up and shook his hand. "That's right. What's your name?" he responded excitedly. "I'm Jack. It's nice to meet you, mate. Let me show you around." The first thing I noticed about Damien was his smile. All the teeth in his mouth seemed visible, and his smile literally never seemed to waver. I don't actually remember ever seeing him with a straight face. As I showed him around, I tried to get to know him a little bit. "Whereabouts are you from, Damien?" I asked. "Not from around here," was all he responded with. "Yeah, cool. How'd you find out about this job?" "I just saw the opportunity," he said, his smile quivering. I just nodded at that. I didn't really seem to get straight answers to the questions I was asking. Instead, he would respond exclusively in a manner which operated to provide as little information as possible. I finished showing him where everything was, and we returned to the counter. To be honest, the shift started pretty slow, but Damien and I actually struck a bit of a good system. We would trade customers so as to stagger the workload between the two of us, and whenever one of us wasn't with a customer, the other would be stocking the shelves. Not long after this system was engaged, I realized how clueless he was with interacting with these customers. I honestly just assumed that maybe he didn't have a customer service background or something, but this guy was, at least in his 40s. I wasn't sure how anyone could get to that age and be as poor in customer relations as this gentleman. For example, this one guy came in, and Damien didn't even initiate the interaction. He stood there smiling at him, waiting for the customer to tell him what he wanted without any provocation. That struck me as really odd. About half an hour went by, and then service really started to pick up. People were coming home from work around that time, so I underwent what I usually did on weekends, a battering. We continued to trade customers, and although his social skills weren't great, the system was working. I found that I was having to work a lot less hard than I usually did. Then something strange happened. I waved goodbye to a usual customer, and this older lady Damien had just served pulled over to the side of the drive-thru. I saw her arm stick out her window, followed by her head. She looked right at me and waved me over. A little bit thrown, I walked over to her, preparing to get yelled at for one reason or another. "Hi, mate," she said in a gravelly voice. Look, not to be an asshole or anything, but you might want to review the performance of your colleague over there. She pointed vaguely in the direction he was standing. He was facing away from us doing absolutely nothing, but even from the back of his head and the way his cheeks looked, I could tell he was smiling. He didn't say a bloody word to me. He just stared at me for ages, then silently went and got my things after I blurted out what I wanted. He also didn't stop smiling once. Yeah. This is his first shift. I think he's just nerve. But I didn't get to finish what I was saying. As we were both looking in his direction, and as I was speaking, a tooth fell out of his mouth. A single tooth. It fell in front of him and bounced off the box that was at his feet, landing just beside him. Me and the woman were stunned. We just watched for a few more seconds. Love, I don't know what the fuck is happening here, but be careful. I've got to run. But seriously, be careful. She peeled out of the drive-thru, leaving me shocked and alone. I probably watched him for at least 2 or 3 more minutes, which doesn't sound like a long time, but trust me when I say it is. In a silent drive-thru, watching a smiling man stare aimlessly into the back of a fridge, it was just bizarre. I finally pulled up the courage to continue about my work. After that customer, we hit a huge quiet patch. I went to the fridges on the opposite side of the store and began to load them. After a little bit, I heard him moving over to the other side of the shop. I looked over and saw he'd shuffled over to behind the counter now. For fuck's sake, I thought. Now he's facing right in my direction. I continued to load the fridge, and Damien did not stop staring at me for even 1 second. He didn't break eye contact. I could see in my peripheral vision that his outline remained facing towards me, smiling and observing. For 1 split second, I mustered up the guts to glance in his direction and saw a missing front tooth. My stomach genuinely sank. It was the worst feeling. Just as I returned to my work, I heard the gentle rumbling of an engine as a car pulled up in the drive-thru. I heard absolutely no movement from behind me in Damien's direction, meaning it was clearly up to me to greet and serve the customer. Shakily, I walked to the driver's side window and said my usual greetings. As the customer was telling me what he wanted, I heard a clink and tapping sound coming from behind me. I immediately knew what it was, but I still had to turn around to check. Unsurprisingly, he continued to smile, but now there were 2 gaps in his mouth. He'd lost another tooth. "Oh, the guy in the car shouted. "Mate, I was talking to you." "Sorry, mate," I responded, still looking at Damien. He just stared at me and smiled. He didn't blink. He didn't even seem to be breathing. The customer repeated what he wanted, and then it dawned on me that in order for me to scan it, though, I was going to have to go up to the counter and stand right next to that creep. A pang of nerves hit my gut, but I had to do what I had to do. I grabbed his drinks from the fridge and made my way around the back of the counter. Of course, the scan tool decided to shit itself right as I was using it, so I had to stuff around for even longer than I planned on doing. He was right next to me, but I didn't look at him once. I was too scared. I walked around and gave the customer his stuff, and he sped away without so much as a thank you. Finally, the clock on the wall ticked over to 6:55 p.m., and it was time to close. As I turned around to grab the keys from the counter, I yelled. He had been standing right behind me. "For fuck's sake, Damien!" I yelled. I was scared. I actually don't know why I yelled that. He didn't change. He continued to smile. I just need to lock up and get out of here, I thought to myself. I walked around him with a newfound sense of bravery, grabbed the keys and went over to the roller doors, I went around, locking everything, not even caring to check on the whereabouts of my colleague. As I crouched down to lock the last roller door into place, I noticed I had goosebumps. I wasn't even sure why. Then my blood ran cold as I looked in the reflection of the fridge in front of me. That motherfucker was right behind me. My fight-or-flight reaction kicked in. I turned around, punched him in his liver, and sprinted as fast as I physically could to the nearest lockable door, the bathroom. As I rounded the corner to the back, I heard heavy footsteps behind me. Way too heavy to proportionately match Damien's stature. Way too fast to be human. I threw the men's bathroom door open and slammed it behind me, locking it on instinct. No sooner had I locked the door than a deafening bang sounded upon it. He was right outside. Words cannot describe the fear I was in. I'm not usually easily scared or anything, and I don't think that my recounting of these events does justice to the horror that would be felt under the circumstances. There was silence for a second, and then an extensive series of bangs rang out on the door. It was like there were 10 men out there, all banging on the door at once. It was such a strong sound. Slowly it picked up in pace. Soon the banging was occurring at a seemingly impossible speed. There was not a single chance that whatever was out there was human. No human in the world could ever hit the door as hard and fast as he was. Then finally, it stopped. Silence. I saw the door handle tremble slowly. I remember thinking to myself, is he just trying to open the door? The trembling stopped, and so too did the commotion of the evening. I probably called Sam like 7 or 8 times, but he didn't pick up at all. I stayed there in that bathroom for hours. I was way too scared to do anything. In retrospect, I have no idea why I didn't just call the cops. My adrenaline was so spiked that the only option in my mind was to call Sam for some reason. Finally, after an eternity, my phone buzzed. It was Sam. I answered straight away. Before I could say anything, his voice rang loudly into my ear. Jack, I know you're probably frustrated, but that's no way to respond to a situation outside of my control. I've been in and out of meetings all evening. You knew that. Jesus, were you so busy you couldn't handle the drive-thru on your own? Sam, you have no idea what happened. He was fucking crazy. I think I need to call the cops. Just as I was about to launch into informing him of the night's events, his words turned over in my mind. Wait, Sam, what the fuck are you talking about? What do you mean I couldn't handle the drive-thru on my own? Jack, I've already apologized. That the trainee didn't show up. He said he was sick and wouldn't be able to come in. Still no reason to give me an earful for it. My stomach dropped. The new guy never showed up? What? No, he didn't show up. He was sick. He said he'd come in next weekend to trial with you. Sorry you've got to do another weekend on your own, mate. His words sat like a ton of bricks in the air. I hung up on him. I swung open the door and looked at the door handle. It had bite marks on it, of a very specific formation. The bite indentations on the wood had one upper tooth missing and one lower tooth missing. I checked everywhere in the store. There was no sign of a struggle. Whatever it was just vanished. I don't know where it went. Every time I think about what went down tonight, the realization just sets in on me again. The real trainee never showed. I have no idea who or what I worked with tonight.